the NBA has said that the 8 games won't help a player make their case for an award. These last 3 awards are very tight compared to the others. So who do you think will win the Sixth Man of the Year, Coach of the Year, and Most Improved Player?
Well, let me start with the Sixth Man of the Year. My top three candidates are Lou Williams, Dennis Schroeder, and Montrezl Harrell. And my winner is Dennis Schroeder. Lou Williams and Montrezl Harrell are both very good sixth men for the Los Angeles Clippers. And the problem is, in their case, they're both really good sixth men for the Los Angeles Clippers, which means they're on the same team. And because of that, it's kind of hard to see each of their impacts on the team and the team's success because they're both on the same team. And that's why I think Dennis Schroeder will win it out, because he's been averaging 19 points a game, 4 rebounds a game, and 4 assists per game. And I think that 19 points per game off the bench is already incredible, but his impact isn't necessarily about the stats, but how he's played such a huge role on the Thunder getting the 5th seed in the West. And like I said, they got the 5th seed in the West, and they had less than a 5% chance to make the playoffs. And Dennis Schroeder has been a huge part of what they do, because I remember last summer, before this season, Sam Presti even wrote a letter to the fans saying, we're sorry, this rebuild will take a couple years, but we will be competitive soon. And they weren't. It's true. They were competitive soon, because they were competitive this year. They got the 5th seed in the West, and I think that's a huge part. And a huge part of that is Dennis Schroeder. And although Lou Williams and Montrezl Harrell are great six men, they're on my championship favorite Clippers, so they didn't have too much of an impact compared to Dennis Schroeder. And that's why I think Dennis Schroeder wins Sixth Man of the Year.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there. I think it's Dennis Schroeder this year, and I think he's had a better season than Lou Williams and Montrezl Harrell. And I think if you didn't have Montrezl Harrell on the Clippers, Lou Williams would be able to produce more, and he would probably win it this year as well. But I think Dennis Schroeder wins it because the Thunder had I think less than a 1% chance to make the playoffs, and they thought that Chris Paul was past his prime, but Chris Paul has shown that he's still a great player. And they added Shai Gilgeous-Alexander from the Paul George trade, and a lot of people forgot about Dennis Schroeder and that he was on the team, and that the big of an impact he has on the team. And he showed that when he came off the bench. He's averaging almost 20 points per game. He had 4 assists and 4 rebounds, and he's really helped that team go all the way to the 5th seed. And he's kind of like Lou Williams last year. He's really helped that team, but I don't think they'll get far in the playoffs. But I think they're still a good team, and that Dennis Schroeder needs a lot of recognition for that.
Well, I agree with you that the Thunder won't make too much of a splash in the playoffs, but they're in the 5th seed. They've got like competition like the Rockets, the Jazz, the Mavericks, teams like that. If they do face a team like the Mavericks or the Rockets, or even someone like the Jazz, like I said, do you think that they could win that first round and go to the second round? Not the conference finals, but just the second round?
I don't think they can get past. I think any of these teams except probably the 8th seed team, but we know that they won't be able to be the number 1 seed. So I don't think they'll be able to pass any of those teams, because they're led by a guy that's in his second year who hasn't had a lot of playoff experience in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He is a great player, and he has had playoff experience last year, but he wasn't in the spotlight. He wasn't the main player last year, and I think this year he is. And with that comes responsibility and stuff. So I don't know if he will be able to take that on and win the entire series. The Thunder might take it to 6 games, but I don't think they'll be able to get past the first round.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. I think they could be a dark horse to maybe be close to beating the Jazz, but I don't think they will get out the first round.
Yeah.
So
So, who's your
go ahead.
coach of the year for this year?
Well, a lot of people might say Frank Vogel or Mike Budenholzer again, but we have to give credit to Nick Nurse because he's my coach of the year winner. And like most people, I really want to pick Frank Vogel, the Lakers coach, but I think Nick Nurse deserves his credit because he didn't get it last year as much as Mike Budenholzer. And this is because no one thought the Raptors would be a top team in the East even after Kawhi Leonard left. But guess who proved them wrong? Nick Nurse. He's put so many players in positions to succeed. You see, Pascal Siakam, he's now an all-star this year. I think he was an all-star starter, I believe, at power forward. And he was taken with the 27th pick in the first round. And he's their star player. Not only that, he's found many undrafted players who made huge contributions to this team. Fred VanVleet, their starting shooting guard, he was undrafted. He played a huge part in their championship win over the Warriors, and now he's averaging 18 points a game as their starting shooting guard this year. And then there's two other players in Chris Boucher and Terrence Davis. They're both players that the Raptors found hidden gems in the rough. And Chris Boucher is a great depth piece behind Pascal Siakam as a power forward, and Terrence Davis is a great player off the bench in his rookie year, shooting 42% from three for these Raptors. And I think because Nick Nurse finds this talent and puts his team in the positions to win, the Raptors are a second seed in the East and legitimate title contenders even without Kawhi Leonard. And that's why he deserves Coach of the Year.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there. I think Nurse deserves it. I think he deserved it last year, but the playoffs didn't count towards the award races, and it was only the regular season. So that's why he didn't win it last year. But I think this year he really deserves that credit because he, even with Kawhi leaving, a top 10 player, a top 5 player in the league leaving, you made up for it with Norman Powell. He's doubled his production. He's averaging almost 16 points per game. You have found other players like Chris Boucher, Terrence Davis, and helped other players like Kyle Lowry and Pascal Siakam become all stars. And then I think like you mentioned this that the fans didn't or people didn't think that the Raptors would be in title contention again. They thought that they would just be in the playoffs, but maybe get swept in the first round or second round. But Nick Nurse has shown that this team is still a title contending team, and they want to defend their championship and may possibly go for another ring this year and win. And I think that's why the Nick Nurse deserves this coach of the year because he's really helped these players develop and now they're the second seed above the teams that we thought would be the number one seed in the Boston Celtics, Miami Heat, and he's really elevated these Raptors to um, become their best players, the best um, players like that they could be.
Yeah, that's a point. Like I said, I definitely agree with you there. I think you will win Coach of the Year, but let's think of someone like Mike Malone because he's the Denver Nuggets coach, and for the past 2 years, he's led the Denver Nuggets to the number two or three seed, which they have right now. Do you think he deserves any credit for Coach of the Year because he still hasn't been recognized for it?
I think last year he got a lot of recognition for it because I think they were the number one seed
Number
and
two.
number two. Okay, so okay, yeah. So number two seed, but they this year they kind of I think in my eyes they kind of disappointed me because they added players like Jeremy Grant, and I thought they would be the number two or number three seed, and I think they will drop to probably the fourth seed, and that's due to the Clippers and Lakers building their super teams. But I think I don't think Mike Malone deserves a lot of credit. I think he deserves some credit for and some consideration for Coach of the Year, but not too much because he hasn't. I thought this team would become a great team, and that hasn't. Really, they've been a great team, but they haven't shown that um, they can get past probably one of those LA teams and get to the finals this year.
Okay, well, one last question for one last coach. We're looking at Frank Vogel. Okay, he he on the Orlando Magic. He led them to the playoffs in the 2018-19 season, but he didn't get much credit because he didn't really have a good team. They lacked a really good point guard or a shooting guard. But how much now that he's had a team with good talent, he's shown how much of a good coach that he can be, putting players in positions to succeed, and also being such a transformer on the defensive side of the ball for the Lakers. Do you think he'll be a dark horse candidate for Coach of the Year?
He could possibly, but I don't think so because you look at their team and they have almost two top 10 players in Anthony Davis and LeBron James. And if you have two top 10 players, I think that any team can be good, even with it doesn't matter the coach. They can just be a great team. You saw that with the Cleveland Cavaliers before they fired David Blatt. He wasn't a great coach as good as Tyronn Lue, but he still helped that team, and they were still I think in the playoffs top five or third seed. I don't remember. It was like 5 years ago. So I don't think he deserves. I think he just deserves some credit, but you got to look at their team, and they have such an amazing and talented team that any coach, if you put any coach there, I think that they could still be the number one seed.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you on that take, and I really think that Nick Nurse will win the Coach of the Year.
Yeah. So who do you have for your most improved player? This is the category. I think it's kind of tight. I think it's um, the best award race that we have. So who do you have for most improved player?
Well, there's several players that I would choose, like Bam Adebayo, Brandon Ingram, and Devontae Graham. I think those will be the top three players for the race, and I'm going to say it's got to be Brandon Ingram. And he's taken a huge step with his game this year. And last year, he averaged 18 points, 5 rebounds, and 3 assists on a Lakers team that seemed to struggle without LeBron James. And now, as a Pelican, he's averaged 24 points per game, 6 rebounds a game, and 4 assists per game, and route to becoming to having his first All-Star appearance this past season. And not only that, he kept the Pelicans in the playoff race while Zion Williamson was injured. And if they do make the playoffs this year, I think he'll be a huge reason why they will.
I don't really agree with you on that point. And I think Bam Adebayo deserves most improved player most because you mentioned all the players that are in the race for most improved player. Players like Devontae Graham, and you can even say Luka Doncic from Rookie of the Year to MVP race. But the NBA doesn't really give recognition to second year players because they they're supposed to step up their game. So I think the only the two players that are in the race for the most improved player is Brandon Ingram and Bam Adebayo. And if you look at their team and where their team has been, I think Bam Adebayo deserves more because he has a better record with their team as they're the number 4 seed, and the Pelicans are the 10th seed, even with Brandon Ingram becoming an All-Star and other surrounding young pieces like Lonzo Ball and Josh Hart. Bam Adebayo has doubled his production in only 10 more minutes per game. He went from 8 points per game to 16 points per game, and he's become an All-Star this year. He also averaged 5 assists and 10 rebounds, and he's uh, shooting let me see, 56% from the field, and that's pretty good for a center that the Heat have. And since they traded Hassan Whiteside and have Bam Adebayo play the starting center role, the Miami Heat have really flourished as a team, and they've become a dark horse team to win the championship, and that is a lot of credit due to Bam Adebayo.
I agree with saying Bam Adebayo. I can see your point for Bam Adebayo winning Most Improved, but I think the reason um, Brandon Ingram should win Most Improved Player is because he's the only reason why they're in this playoff race. I mean, um, earlier in the season when Brandon Ingram wasn't doing so good, they were looking like they're going to need another year of rebuilding until Zion Williamson comes. But that's not what happened because Brandon Ingram he basically kept them afloat in the playoff race, and he's the only reason why. He's been a clutch player. He can score from inside, outside, mid range. He takes great shots now. He has better shot selection. He passes the ball a lot better now. His handles have improved. Every area of his game has improved, even his defense. And because of that, even though Bam Adebayo is a great player, a player that I'm a huge fan of, I think Brandon Ingram is definitely someone who's could and should win the Most Improved Player.
Yeah, I don't really agree on you at that point because you said that the Pelicans are in the race for the playoffs because of Brandon Ingram, and I think that's a reason why that Brandon Ingram shouldn't win it because he he's he's not even in the playoffs yet with the team that's built around him and Zion Williamson. Bam Adebayo, even though he had Jimmy Butler, they have
Yeah, but they have so many more pieces um on the Heat. Like you have Goran Dragic, Jimmy Butler. He's a top 15 player in the NBA this season, and you have Goran Dragic, Jimmy Butler. You have Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson. They have. I'm not going to say that they have a better team than the Heat than the Pelicans, although I think they have a little bit more talent with Jimmy Butler. But I think because the Pelicans were struggling with injury, especially Zion Williamson for so long, it's not. It's actually I applaud him for even staying in the playoff race because I think Bam Adebayo had a lot more help.
I think they have the same amount of talent wise because they have the Pelicans have younger players in Lonzo Ball, Josh Hart, and they have older guys that have been to the playoffs and are really good players for them, like Derek Favors and JJ Redick. And the Pelicans also had other players like Nico Melli, who was really good. And I think they have the same talent. I think Bam Adebayo had Jimmy Butler, who's a top 15 player, like you said, but Bam Adebayo has really proven that he is a top 30 player, 20 player in the league maybe, and he elevated that Heat team to become a fourth seed, and I think that's why they should win. That he should win the Most Improved Player award.
Yeah, I have to say that it's a close race. It's definitely a tight race, like you said. I think Brandon Ingram should win the Most Improved Player, but I think it can really go either way.